All right, we have to see price break here, a retest on that zone for the bearish side, a bounce of this trend line, and maybe price could continue all the way to the downside to this other level of the 2877 ounce. Okay,
Pips at FX right here, the prophetic analyst. So welcome back to our weekly market focus from the 3rd to the 7th of March, and welcome to a new month and happy new month, guys. So without further ado, before we get started, okay, we observe, due to our statistics, we observe that 95% of you are yet to subscribe to our channel. So if you know you are not subscribed to this channel, please do well to smash that subscribe button, like, share, and drop a comment, because this is the only way you could always encouraging us to coming on here every week to drop in more forex weekly analysis that leads you all to profitability. All right, so without further ado, let's dive into the business of the day. All right, so we are getting started with Xauusd. For Xauusd, and you guys can see the before and after from last week, how we had these zones right about here, in which we wanted price was more like in a range, but at the time we had something like that looked like a head and shoulder, a chart pattern, which you guys that follow me for the longest of time would know that I'm very big on chart patterns. Okay, so we had this nice chart pattern right about there at the time before we even had that breakout there. Then price was, then it became more like a range. So all what we had to do was to imply our market structure strategy, which if you are our mentee or a good follower of ours, you know what we mean by this or how we trade chart patterns. Okay, so all what we wanted was price. You can still see that arrow right about there. We wanted price to give us that break and retest, which later happened right about there. So we had that nice drift all the way to the downside, and these were signals also being sent to our community. All right, so a lot of people also made money from this process. So if you are not on our community, click on the link on the description to join our free Telegram community, so you could also get free forex signals like so. All right, so we had some good trades right about here, and price came, bounced off this trend line just like we wanted. That was the essence of that trend line in which we had from like few weeks ago. So I'm gonna take that trend line off. All right, so we had all these nice sells all the way to the downside. So that's why the prophetic analyst strategy is still very much profitable and still very much the best. So moving forward for this week, okay, where is our best level target? We are going to look at the weekly time frame to see how the weekly time frame actually closed. Okay, so if you guys can remember, like last week you guys saw something like this imaginary head and shoulders, in which I plotted right about there. But this is why you should learn from the prophetic analyst, okay, because it only takes skills and set skills of over half a decade of trading the financial market to be able to spot an imaginary chart pattern in which is yet to happen. Okay, so with this you should know that right about the price may most likely have to retrace from that area. So that's why I've been very big on the bearishness or the pullbacks or the retracements from way back. Okay, so so coming back to our lower time frames, let's see like our daily time frames. Okay, nothing there on the daily. Let's go to our hourly time frame. All right, so here on the hourly time frame, where is our next level target for the coming weeks? I'm going to extend this area like so. And so what should we be looking for? So I would be looking for more like a little bit of retracement or pullbacks, more like a buy to sell scenarios, guys. Okay, buy to sell scenarios right about there. So our first level target would be the 2789.83 ounce. Okay, right about there. So we'll be looking for a buy to sell scenarios in this case. All right, so remember first level targets. Okay, so I had to pull that up. First level target will be at 28.441 ounce. Then we can go all the way to our 2789 ounce to the downsides. And the only reason this trade could be invalid is if price is able to clear these highs. Okay, but if it has to clear that highs, give us a pullback retrace to the upside, but I'm not really seeing that happening. So if you may ask me, I would be favoring the downsides. Okay, so up next is BTC. Okay, so BTC was also one of the best trades that we took during last week, which I also sent signals across the board to you guys. A lot of people also made money, and you guys know I've been big on the BTC drops for the longest of time since way back. I think October, November last year. I've been predicting the bearishness of BTC right about here, and I've been looking forward for price to drop. But you know, it was one thing to analyze, but it's another thing for price to play out the way you want. Okay, price will definitely play out when it wish to. All right, so I'm still gonna do a very good in-depth video on how we took all these trades or how I was able. Let's go to the weekly time frame so you guys can appreciate what you are seeing right about there. You can see all about where about like this time since way back November, October, thereabout. I'll be looking for the drops to the downside, so you can now appreciate how price is looking for right about now. Is not that now price is now dropping is when most of you are now seeing the bearishness, but I've been seeing this bearishness like 4 months ago, like 6 months even ago, because of how we trade our trading strategy. Okay, so moving forward for this week's, like I said, I'm going to do an in-depth video on it, so I'm going to give you guys a quick one right about here. So without further ado, what we'll be looking for on this trade is I'm going to give you guys like a two-way scenarios. Price could start, because price is very much bearish. All right, so price is currently on the zone right about here. Price could retrace from this daily AOI and continue to the downsides back to 100% retracement level, which is these zones right about there, all the way to the downsides. And the second way of entry would be, we could have, which I would prefer price to happen that way, is a retest of these zones, creating a new higher high. Then we should be looking at price going back to 91k. Okay, so I would love price to give us a retest, then going back to 91k, then before price will give us that actual bearish drop to the downsides. Okay, so if you may ask me, this is what I would be favoring all the way to the downside. So that's it on BTC, and up next is Euro USD.
All right, for the bearish side, we're looking for price to clear these zones, this area of interest right about there, a retest there, and first level target, which is our 1.035 areas, all the way to the downsides. Okay, for the bearishness. Then for the bullishness, if the bearishness doesn't play out, then we should be looking for price to continue if price breaks out, because price is already below this zone, this line here breaks out, a retest on that zone, then we can continue to the upside. Okay, but if
you can see how we predicted Euro USD into precision for last week. Euro USD, we had price, I think as a last week price closed somewhere around here. We had price, we predicted the bullish, okay, and the bearish side of things, which price clearly played out into precision, just like you guys can see. We had that retest right about there to the upsides, right about to these zones for the bullish sides, and the bearish sides price also gave us that breakout retest right about here on the bearish side. So I'm gonna take this off. All right, so moving forward for this coming week, okay, where is our next level target? We go to our weekly time frame. All right, so on our weekly time frame, you guys can remember that I clearly stated that price is still very much on the bearish trend. The price is still very much on the bearish trend. As far as price is still very much on this monthly AOI, we shouldn't write off the bearish side of things, that price could bounce off from right about there. And also specifically, I mentioned about how this candle closed for last week. That candle closing, or candle closings, especially on the higher time frames, are very, very important, in which we should put into considerations on our trading. That's why you see me mostly checking how the previous week candle closed. This also helps as a deciding factor for price movement on the coming week. So you can see we had this the past week that we had, price later gave us that nice bearishness all the way to the downside. So if you do not see how we predicted that, or you think we're capping, here is the video.
What that means, and just like I said last week, okay, we shouldn't write off the bearishness, because price is still very much on a downtrend. Price is creating series of highs, lows, so this could be a new higher low being created before we continue to the downsides. And also, like I always said, price is here to clear these zones, and price is still very much on this monthly zone. Okay, so we shouldn't write off the bearishness of things. for price. So what does that mean this week?
You can see how we predicted Euro USD into precision right about in the weekly zone. So this is why you should be taking the weekly area of interest or weekly zones, very important. Okay, so just a quick word on the weekly zones, all right, to show you guys that this area is also a range. Okay, that's actually a range. So what we should be looking for on this weekly zone is something like a break, a retest, and a push continuations to the downside. Price is still very much on a range on the weekly or the higher time frames and above. Okay, so let's go to the hourly time frames to see if we can make some good trading decisions right about there. All right, so here on the 4-hour time frames, all right, so what I'm going to do right about there, I'm going to adjust this to the recent market structure like so. I'm going to adjust this to the recent market structure like so. So what should we be looking forward for? So I'll give you guys a two-way scenarios. Price, I'm going to mark out a little minor zone right about here. All right, good. So I'm going to look for price to come back to this minor area of interest, the hourly area of interest, then a push and a pullback or a drop to the 1.026 for area to the downside, or we could even have price come back to our 1.0408. all right, then before we could have that drops. But the other side of things, we could also have price giving us a reversals right about here, more like a pullbacks right about here back to this area, something more like a buy to sell scenarios of things. If this also happens, this is not also bad, so we could have price pullbacks to more like to this other second area of interest, in which we have right about there, all right, which is at 1.0455 area, then before we could have our drops to the downside. So that's why, like I always say, do well to mark out these zones on your phone, your PC, or your device of trading. All right, so that would be our directional bias for Euro USD for this week. So up next is GBP For GBP USD, we can see how we predicted GBP USD into precision. Price also gave us some little bullishness and some drops. Okay, but it wasn't really a significant one for the bearish sides of things. Though for the bullish sides of things, we also took some good nice buys, all right, which gave us like 1:1.5. We closed at break even because I wasn't comfortable on how price was somewhere around this zone, so I told them to close around 1.5 area, which was still in good little profit. Though then we still had, at the time, we also had that break, that retest that we were looking for. Then all what is left is the push continuations to the downsides. Okay, so moving forward for the coming weeks, like I always say, is necessary we look at how the weekly time frame closed for the previous week. Okay, so we can see, like I said last week, this candle or how the weekly candle closed is always important. For last week, we can see price closed with that indecision candle right about there. So now we are seeing price close more like with a hammer kind of candle, which is also more like a reversal candle pattern. Okay, so this is also would also help us as a deciding factor of price continuations on the bearish side. You can see price created a low, a higher low right about here, so we are looking for price to create a new price to start dropping from there, from that lower high right about there. So let's go back to our hourly time frame to look for the best level possible for our trading and for price trading movement. Okay, so here on the 4-hour time frame, all right, I'll be giving you guys some bearish scenarios. Okay, so right about here, how price currently looks for me, I could take these trades. We have like somewhere around the 40 pip stop, like right about there. It doesn't matter your stop loss, all that matters is your risk to reward, guys. So we can see 1:2, so we can go for price to selling from here all the way to our 1.248 to the downsides. Okay, so now we have that break, we have that retest which happened before market close. First level target 1.255 and next level 1.25317 to the downsides. Okay, also we could also have price drop all the way to our green bars right about there. So actually, as market open, you can take advantage of these trades right about there, or also they could have some little minor pullbacks to these zones like so. All right, so like I always say, it's very important to mark out this on your PC or whatever device you're trading. So that's it for GDP USD, and up next is AUDUSD.
For these coming weeks, for price to come back to these levels, to react off these levels and push to 100% retracement level, which is at 0.632 area, then we can go all the way to a 0.628 area.
Coming to AUDUSD, you can see how we predicted AUDUSD for last week into precision. AUDUSD for last week was one of my A kind of setup, my best kind of trades in which we were looking for last week, which if you guys also observe, for the past 1 or 2 months I haven't analyzed AUDUSD, which so I had to analyze that as a last week of market forecast, okay, because I was seeing great potentials of bearishness on AUDUSD. You can see how price actually dropped from the actual zones we were looking for and a continuous bearishness, even more than we anticipated, all the way to the downsides. And if you look at the weekly time frame for last week, like I always say, it's very important to look at how the candle closings for previous weeks. This will help you as a deciding factor of price directional bias. Okay, you can clearly see that doji shooting star kind of candle, a pin bar, whatever you may call it, which is a reversal candle pattern like there. Price gave us a super nice bearishness with little to no retracement here on the higher time frames, and we had a very nice bearishness to the downsides. Like I said, these were also signals being sent, and I took all these trades, and this break and retest was also one of those trades. I did not actually take this personally, but my mentee did with our trading confirmations and our trading setups and strategy, okay, which will be going all the way to the downsides of the 0.618, which price is still very much heading over to that zones, okay, heading over to that zones right about there. So moving forward for this coming weeks, okay, so where is our next level target? For me, I'm going to plot new zones right about here. All right, I'm going to plot new zones, so I'm going to give you guys some buy. We'll be looking for some buy to sell scenarios, okay. So we may have price pull back to these zones of the 0.62429 area, then we could have drops back to 100% retracement level, which is at 0.6180 area, okay. But if price does not play out, we could even have a deeper retracement back to 0.6285 area, then we could go all the way to a 0.6183 area, okay. So what we will be looking for next week is more like a buy to sell scenario. So like I always say, do well to mark out these levels on your phone, your PC, or your trading device, okay. Up next is the DXY.
Closed for last week with this doji kind of a candle and indecision candle. I did not just close anyway, it's closed on this area of interest. Just like I said, that zone is a deciding factor that we could have price bullish continuations from there back to the upsides. And I also say that what we are having, all the bearishness we are having on the DXY for now is more like a retracement, okay. So where is our next level target for the coming weeks? All right, so we could have price start plashing all the way from here to our first level, which is at 108, then before I can go all the way to the upside.
DXY into precisions, I made mention of price closing. Like I always say, weekly time frames. Each time before a new week starts, before you analyze the trade, check how the previous week had closed. It may aid you to your trading decisions for the coming weeks, okay. So I said price was bouncing off a very strong area of interest in which we had our eyes on. So right, so price closed last week with this doji kind of candle, the reversal candle. Then we had that bullish side of things, in which was what we were anticipating of price to do, okay, which our first level targets was right about these zones, and we are going all the way to the upside. So this is why it's very important you do your analysis from the higher time frames during the weekends for price breakdowns. And this is why it's also important you learn from the prophetic analysts, because these are things that we teach you in our mentorship, which our mentorship is coming up in a week time, okay. So we still have I think we still have like 2 slots left for the March mentorship. So if you're interested to trading with the prophetic analyst and knowing our trading strategy, which would lead you to profitability, just like my other several students in which you have taught in previous months, okay, you can also get our mentorship, so you could also be able to decipher price just like we do. Okay, so moving forward for the coming weeks, okay, so let's go back to our hourly time frame. All right, so where price currently is actually a zone for reason for concern, okay, because looking left, price is actually on some zones which price is reacting right about there. So I'll be looking for I'll feel more comfortable if price comes back to these areas, okay, before a continuations to the upside. So right, so what I'm gonna do right about there is mark out that zone like so. All right, I'm going to mark out that zones like so. And also during the week, price was also ranging, I think, for like 3-4 days, okay, 3 days thereabout. Price was ranging here, so hence why I had to put this box, okay, looking for price to break out of that areas so that we could know where price is actually ready, or which directional bias in which price was wanting to move towards. Okay, so I'm looking forward for some sell to buy scenarios, okay, some pullbacks on the DXY. Okay, it could be price could come to this first level before continuations, okay, or price may go as deep as the 106 before continuations to the upside. So that's it for the DXY, and up next is USDJPY.
We already have price respect that phase zone right about there, so we'll have price create a new high, which it has, and a continuations to this next level, which is our 0.891 to the downside. So what does this mean? Market open, you can just take your sales, put your stops all about right about there, and target these first levels or all the way to the downside. Okay,
so you can see how we predicted USDchf into precision price. We wanted price as of last week was close somewhere around here. We wanted price to break, retest that zone, which we had a nice one, and price continuations to the downside. Okay, and also price just came into these zones and closed just mitigated that zone just at our area of interest before price started going up. All right, so this is why it's always important you mark out your AOI. You can see that weekly area of interest, very strong area, which is this area right about there. So this is why I like marking out my levels right about time, right beforehand, and when price gets to these levels, it would most likely respect those levels. Okay, so moving forward for the coming weeks, where is our next level target? I'm going to mark out a new zones like so, all right, in which you should be looking for price to move from. So we could have some sell to buy scenarios, price coming back to these zones, then a continuations to the upsides. Okay, so if this does not happen, price could just start flying from these areas all the way back to our 0.1519 area. So that's it for USDCHF. Up next is USDJPY. Okay, so USDJPY, we were looking for price to continue to the upsides. Okay, price, you can see these buys in which we also took at the time, which signals were also being sent. So we were looking for price to come back to these zones right about there, but price has been ranging for, I think, like 3 or 4 days during the week, and this bullishness happened, I think, Thursday or Friday to the upside. So we were in a very deep range all the way to the upside. So for the coming weeks, where is our next level target? Okay, so what I'm going to do right about here, because price is still very much on a range, guys, price is still very much on a range. Okay, so we'll be looking for price. I'll bring this right about here for price to break out of these highs. Okay, price to break out of these highs, a retest here, and a push continuations to our first level. So I'm going to adjust our first level to these zones like so, to our first level, which is our 152 area. Then we can go as high as our 153 area. Okay, so like I always say, do well to mark out these levels on your phone, your PC, or whatever device you're using to trade. So that's it for this week's analysis. If you're watching this video to this very moment, please do well to smash that like button, subscribe if you are yet to subscribe. Like the statistics says, we have only over 95% of you are not subscribed to this channel. So please, if you find value on this channel, please do what to subscribe, and also join our free community. Link on the description or the first comment, and also drop some comments on the comment section, some fire emojis, and let us know which other forex educational content you would love us to make, and we'll try as possible to make that. Always remember to plan your trades and trade your plans. Happy new month once again, guys, and see you guys in the inner circle. Cheers.